Good morning. Good morning, and thank you for coming to today's special meeting of the Board of Supervisors for April 18th, called to order at 9:07. Pledge of allegiance by Supervisor Munzer.
Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Supervisor Munzer. Got to have a acknowledgement certificate of posting.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. Thank you. Regular agenda. First item will be having a discussion pertaining to revenue from the Panoche Valley Solar Project. My understanding is that we should just.
Can we?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if we don't mind, I know he still has to do a few setup computer-wise. Can we take the second and third item first, and then
no
come?
problem. Okay, we will. But before we do that, when we're talking that, let's remain on the item of revenues. If you're going to have questions, just keep it to revenues questions.
Sure.
And there's a reason why. We'll explain that later on. Okay, let's go to number 2. Whole discussion of sales tax CBOs and the possibility of using a new methodology on CBOs application, right? Or who's going to do it? Melinda?
Melinda will take care of it.
Good morning.
So we're number 2 now.
Okay, on the CBOs, actually, let me hand out. This might be a little more. This handout is basically, I think it kind of summarizes the draft that you have in front of you.
Thank you, sir.
So basically, we've had some discussions regarding the CBOs lately. And the summary of the draft that you have in front of you is basically one, to change the funding allocation process that we currently have in place. In 2008, your board, through direction, authorized that we set aside 6.5% of sales tax prior year revenue, that we set that aside every year, and we allocate that towards the CBO programs. In looking at the sales tax, we feel that that can be a little volatile. We have a couple of items that could change how much of that is allocated. Currently, we have $120,000 allocated in that program. However, if we look at what PV2 how that might affect our sales tax, and then if we also ever have like a general sales tax initiative before the board, that would change the amount of how much we would allocate towards the CBOs. So we're looking to basically freeze that allocation. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hold on a minute, Melinda.
I have one question with the in concerns to PV2. Are we considering that sales tax or property assessment?
Well, Mr. Chair, if I may, technically they're not either or. They're in lieu of. So it's through a development agreement, which we're going to talk a little bit about in item number 1. That's what we're going to cover that.
Yeah, I don't want to give the perception out to the public that this is considered as sales tax and is part of the 6.5%.
That's correct.
COBs.
That's correct. You're correct, Mr.
So
Mr. Anthony.
my understanding, Melinda, when you're talking about down the road about written reports and put into budget policies, we're going to define what the sales tax 6.5 sales tax is going to be, right?
Correct.
And like Supervisor Patella, what he said, that's a perfect example of how we're going to define that. Correct?
Correct. It was my understanding that part of the PV2, there was a second component to PV2 that had to do with the sales of the purchase of their equipment.
Right.
That would also become part of our sales tax. There's also an in lieu piece.
Right.
I believe there's
Supervisor-
two pieces to it.
Supervisor Munzer?
Well, I have two comments. One, I think, is the CEO is correct. I believe, and
Well, I was, Mr. Chair, if I was just made aware that that's what we're going to talk about in item number 1, because it was that way before. Now it seems like it's going to change. So we're going to talk about that in item number 1. Let's talk about that in item number 1.
Okay.
Let's leave sales tax of PV2 alone at this point.
Okay.
My comment is it 6.5% of the sales tax?
Of what was the prior year's actual revenue.
And we had said from 2008 that is what we would give to the CBOs, correct?
Right. Correct.
And that's an arbitrary number that was determined back in 2008, correct?
Right.
So that number can be changed.
So we're looking for, if there are items that become included in that sales tax, then, such as a general sales tax, then that number, the 6.5% stays the same, but the number, and currently it's
But the
$120,000.
6.5 does not have to stay the same.
Correct.
That's correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That was per direction of your board, not necessarily a written policy
Yes, thank you.
formally adopted.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the second part of the CBO draft policy is that we would take out what we are considering senior-based programs, those programs that service the senior population of the county, and that also use those dollars as federal matching for federal and state programs. So we would take that out of the application process. That's currently roughly about $80,000 to 4 programs, and we would take that out of the application process. They wouldn't be required to submit an in the application process. They wouldn't be required to submit an application. Their funding would be frozen at the $80,000 allocation, and they would still have to report to your board how they use that allocation, but they would not be subject to the application process. And then the other 40,000, the remaining 40,000, they're more for youth and disadvantaged programs, and they would still be part of the application process. And then finally, item number 3 would be, it's a little confusing sometimes when the CBOs come up here and report about the allocations that they're received for the current fiscal year, and then also what they've are asking for the next fiscal year. Sometimes that seems to be a little confusing as to which year we're talking about. So we were looking for direction that those would become written reports, and we would put those into a presentation to be presented to your board after July 31st of the following year. And then finally, we would put all of this, whatever your direction is, into our budget policies for the fiscal year 17-18 that we're working on. Any questions?
So, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
So just in layman's terms, through discussion in administration, is that with the possibility of a drastic increase in some sort of tax in the next year or two, we wanted to keep these figures similar or very close, similar to what we do for the offices, for services and supplies and other things. So keeping it to a fixed rate at taking a snapshot of what it is today. And if we do increase either, service and supplies, or we do a small increase based off of CPI for normal departments, we would do something similar with that. If we reduce or keep it status quo, we would do something similar with that as well. Again, if there is a drastic increase, we wanted to have your board have the option to put it either into roads or put it somewhere else where you could use it at, and give your board the discretion to do that. So that was kind of our thought with the development of this, and just wanted to present that to you today and get your direction on that.
Thank you. Supervisor Botello?
Yeah, for sake of full disclosure to my colleagues and to the public, Supervisor Barrios and I met with the AAA representative late last year, and what they were requesting was a process that they're not in this competition, so to speak,
Right.
every year. That they are quasi government mandated programs which we get federal matches for, and that other agencies and jurisdictions have already done this. So I don't think what is being requested by staff and what we're determined hopefully today to put it into a formula that they feel somewhat feel that they have the funding going on an ongoing basis, and we avoid what happened with Hollister a year or two ago, where they decided to cut the program altogether and jeopardize the the level of services that San Diego County has. And so I like this approach. It kind of takes out the question marks to the the senior programs and the list that we have, and the funding is secured going forward. So, but of course that we'll have to change that 6.5 sales tax figure to for the other community-based programs, and it'd be more of a judgment as far as revenues that are available.
Oh boy, I remember when this program first started. I asked the question: will we be here in the future discussing? Well, these groups already get it automatically. Just put them through the regular budget process. They're part of our department. Just put them in the budget, and then we'll get a whole new set of applications, and then 2-3 years down the road, let's just put these other ones in the regular budget. And this is a way to circumventing the budget process by allowing certain people, certain groups to come into the back door and then be on the budget. And it's happening now. That's exactly what's happening. And it might sound like a fair idea because of the matching funds. I understand that. You want to leverage that. But, I mean, for me, right away, a bunch of red flags start sticking up. It's like, if we were going to give somebody automatically or put them underneath our budget, do we have staff accountability on their actions? I mean, do we have an ability to, if someone complains about a program or staff, and do we have any authority over firing and hiring, those kind of positions? I don't think so. I don't think so, unless they're willing to give up their authority, sole authority, and to come into the county's budget. Are they willing to be, okay, I'm at the will of our CEO or the board of supervisors? If that's the case, then I think that'll be worthwhile to get into. And then the other option, the other concern that I have too is now that we're kind of picking up different type component programs, is that the best option that's out there? In other words, is there some other type of other service that can provide the same services at a cheaper, better cost? Just those kind of simple questions, because you just can't bring in an item that's never been part of the budget and say, okay, you're part of the budget process. So there's got to be some scrutiny and some accountability on the other side too. So that's one of the concerns that I have. And the other concern that I have is in bad times, and you said this, right, Ray, in bad times, we'll have the ability to cut back those funds, right? Because I definitely do not want to make a decision of giving the money to a nonprofit and yet not fixing our roads. I want to make sure that's happening, that we have that ability. That's just my points. Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess my comment on your comments would be, these are nonprofits that are, my understanding is they're doing state and federal mandated services for our residents, that if they weren't out there doing it, we would have to provide the full service. And so on the surface, I don't have a problem with this. As far as having a say about how their board is run, I think that would probably be going too far. But we do have a say at any time of pulling their funds that we give them if we're hearing bad reports about how they're running their program. So that is the stick that we hold with our carrot.
If I may add as well, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
We're participants on the board. They have monthly meetings that, I'm on the AAA board myself, and we have an alternate as well as representatives from the city. And they've always been receptive of the services that they are providing to San Bernardino County and maintaining the high quality as best they can. I don't think we could do any better than the job that they've been doing themselves at that cost. But we certainly have a voice to attend the meetings either through our staff or members of this board, as well as our two cities to participate, and that provides a level of accountability. And as Supervisor Munzer stated, we still have the ability on a given year to review what we're contributing. These are kind of mandated programs, and we can't provide these services ourselves just at this cost. So it's a great partnership, and like I noted before, and maybe through the public hearing as well, maybe some details will come out through that. But other counties already have done this.
Okay. Well, Supervisor Medina,
I think
how do you feel?
I feel pretty good.
I guess I need to know where you.
Unfortunately, I'm going to side with Supervisor Munzer and Supervisor Botello.
Fair enough. Okay, then we will continue. Then in this budget, Melinda, we'll freeze the 80,000 for senior-based programs.
Okay.
Was there any public comment on this one?
We'll go there right now, and then the 40,000 it'll go to non-senior based program. Okay.
Okay.
Is that concludes your report?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to open up to the public. Anyone from the public?
I'd add some comedy.
Good morning. Clay Kemp, Executive Director of the Seniors Council, which operates the AAA. And Supervisor Botello, I think, described it well, that the way these programs work is essentially the AAA functions in a quasi-governmental role where we receive about $1.6 million in state and federal funds and then contract with other service providers for the services that are mandated with that funding. We've recognized that San Benito County has fewer resources to provide those services than Santa Cruz County has. So instead of splitting the funds based on the senior population, which would be about 83% to 17%, we overfund San Benito County and allocate 25% of our funds over here. So the relationship of us doing that is a little different than most parts of the state. In California, 5 AAAs are nonprofits. We're one of those 5. In most parts of the state, they're part of county government. So the question is, do we do this and can we do it cheaper as a nonprofit, or do you in Santa Cruz County form a joint powers agreement with, the complexities of 2 counties trying to split up funds? Santa Cruz would probably hammer you guys about getting too much, and we'd have that battle for starters, and then it would be a government function. There'd have to be payment of staff and so forth. So I think everyone agrees that the most cost-effective way is to have us run it. Essentially, nonprofits tend to be cheaper, poorer paid, fewer benefits than county government is. So part of the argument is that, it's cost effective to do this. And then I think the other piece of it is just that complexity of multiple government agencies working together slows down processes, and we can do it a little sleeker as one organization that doesn't have these partners. And then also, as Supervisor Botello referred to, every AAA is mandated to have an advisory council and an official governing board. Our advisory council is made up of elected officials, so the County of San Benito has 2 slots. Both our counties have 2 slots on the advisory council. And Supervisor De La Cruz, you have one, and Supervisor Botello has another, and then you have various alternate slots on it. So the argument that I've made about this when I come up to the mic every year and said, let's have this discussion, is we've had this arrangement since 1980, 79, so it's not something new. And what I like to say, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it's serious, is that both Santa Cruz County, and San Benito County want us to run the AAA rather than have the government take it over and you guys try to run it at your expenses. We also agree that we want to do that. But every year we have to renew that agreement through the funding process, and it starts getting a little bit absurd that, the board knows what they want to do. Santa Cruz County Board knows what they want to do. We know what we want to do, yet we have to go through a new process to agree that's how we're going to do it. So the phrase I say is, we've been dating now 38 years. It might be time to get married, or at least get engaged, maybe even live together for a little while. But, the process tends not to acknowledge the agreement that already exists and not really be productive of staff time on either agency side of it. So I think this is a great step in that direction. As to the other services, it kind of follows suit that if we're providing these federal and state dollars to operate certain services, and those services are also funded as they're required to be by local government, why not take the full step and have them be...
Can you summarize the report, please?
Yeah, and I'm kind of there right now. Why not take the full step and have all the organizations part of this decision? So we're really happy you're considering this. Love to see it on the agenda, and appreciate the side conversations that we had also.
Right,
so
if
there's other questions that come up, given our role, I'm happy to come back up here and answer
We'll do
those.
that. Thank you very much. Sure. Anyone else?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having us here today, having this opportunity. I'll make it quick. I just want to thank you for your ongoing commitment. I think it's all been said by the board members and also by Clay, who kind of went over the scenario in terms of where we are and what we do. But thank you for the support. I just wanted to mention this for Supervisor Medina's purpose. I've been coming before this board for over 40 years, a little bit over 40 years, so it's really great to come to this point after all this time. On behalf of myself, my board of directors, and our clients that we serve, the seniors of the county, thank you. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Pauline. Anyone else? Hey, Melinda, got a quick question. This pertains to Pauline's project. Can you hold on, Wayne? I want Melinda. Okay. The Meals on Wheels, that's still part of this allocation, right?
Right. That Pauline just came up. She's with Hovind and San Antonio,
Perfect.
and they do the Meals on Wheels program.
That's an important program. Very important. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Thanks a lot for allowing us this time. My name is Wayne Norton, and I'm the coordinator of the Ombudsman Program in San Benito County. And this year, I'm also the chair of the county's Aging and Long-Term Care Commission. And first, I want to thank staff for working on this plan. Seems like a really well-thought-out, well-developed plan. I think it's probably a good idea. I think it recognizes the programs that are mandated and have sort of quasi-governmental function, and I think it does a good job of separating those out because they really do function differently. On the point of oversight, all these programs have lots of regulation. They're regulated by federal and state law. There's plenty of regulation, and there's a great opportunity. There's all kinds of opportunities to file complaints, official complaints that are investigated by a wide variety of state and federal agencies. So if there's any kind of oversight, most of these programs have books of oversight. And finally, I'd just like to say You're welcome. Please come to our meetings of our Aging and Long-Term Care Commission. We hold them on the second Friday of each month at 9:30 in the morning at the boardroom at Hazel Hawkins Hospital. We talk about a wide variety of issues relating to aging and seniors and service provision in San Benito County. And I would love for you all to come. Don't feel like you need a special invitation, but if you do, I'd be happy to invite you personally. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Good morning. I am Creighton Mendevel. I'm the Executive Director of Senior Citizens Legal Services, the smallest funded senior organization on the list. And one thing I wanted to say about this is I'm very happy that it's going in this direction. And the point that I see in this is it's saving money for everyone, and it saves time, and it saves my resources to be able to help more seniors in San Benito County. If I don't have to prepare a request for proposal every year, you're saving 6-8 hours of my time, and you're saving the time of the county staff where they don't have to review and go over this. It takes a lot of effort on all these parts, and I'm probably, well, being the executive director of a nonprofit legal aid, I'm probably one of the lower paid people that's going to look over these paperwork. So it's helping everyone out, and it allows me to put more of my focus and attention on helping the seniors. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Gary. I'm all choked up. I'm Gary Edwards, Executive Director of Advocacy, Inc., and we run the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program. Wayne's the program coordinator for the program. And again, I want to thank you for your support. Support from San Benito County helps for us to provide a long-term care ombudsman located in San Benito County. So for the long-term care facilities that are here, we've got someone on the ground here rather than having to send somebody from Santa Cruz County. I think it's important to recognize that the services that we provide are unduplicated in the community. We don't have other competitive. It's not a competitive bid for us. Mandated programs, unduplicated, and I think Clay's point about the additional funds, resources that we put into San Benito County, I think that's really important. It's something that's important to us to be able to do. Again, I just want to say thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Marty Richmond. I'm not even executive director of my own household. I went to a luncheon the other day sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce, and it was amazing how many organizations were in there that do work, essentially government work, because we can't do it here. And so they work hand in glove with the staff that you have, such as Child Protective Services and other services. And in this case, they have the aging. So we're doing it for the young, and we're doing it for the old. There's an old saying when I grew up, probably shows how old I am, which went, never look a gift horse in the mouth. And you've got a gift horse here, so I'm not worried about you pulling their funding, because the other old saying is never cut off your nose to spite your face. Who would do this work? In Santa Clara County and counties where they make millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in their general fund and can afford it. And I just looked the other day and I saw that Monterey in 2015 had a $20 million take-in from their transit occupancy tax, just in case you're interested. $20 million for 28,000 people. They can afford to do it themselves. We can't afford to do it ourselves. So you're getting it basically for free, rather than everybody coming up here and thanking you. You should be thanking them. That's the way I see it. Because what would you do? You'd be stuck. You'd be stuck on the wrong end of 500 lawsuits just to start, okay? And then you'd be stuck with a reputation of a county that can't take care of its own people because we can't afford it, because we don't have the income and the revenue. And that's a subject that you all know is dear to my heart, okay? So I thank you for making the right decision, at least not requiring them to pile up a bunch of paperwork so that so you can give them $80,000 so they can give you $250,000 back that they get from the federal government. Thank you very much. That's a good deal. I'll make that trade any day they want to do it on a personal basis. I'll give my address and come to the house, and we'll make that deal. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Marty.
Hello, I'm Maria Thomas. I'm the CEO of Community Food Bank. And I'm not here to thank you today. I'm not happy. We barely found out about this a few days ago. I kind of feel a little sideswiped. One thing I'd like to ask is if you are going to set aside the senior programs, that the Community Food Bank, the grant that we get from the county, is used exclusively for what we call our senior brown bag program, our senior delivery. That's what we use the grant for, so we're not sure why we were left out of the senior program bucket. But even beyond that, I've only come before you for 2 years, Pauline for 40 years, to constantly ask not to cut funding. And it reminds me of one of my favorite movies, Mr. Holland's Opus. It stars Richard Dreyfuss, and he's a music teacher. And every few years they want to cut the funding because that's typically how education deals with budget crisis, is to cut the funding for the arts or the music programs. So he gets in front of the governmental body for the school district and says, you need to rework your budget. And they tell him, but we have reworked it. And he says, no, you've got to rework it. You have to think outside the box, under the box, throw the box out, do whatever you have to do, but don't cut. Maybe we can be the first community and the first government in the history of mankind that doesn't face budget crisis by cutting it from the flesh of those of the least of our community, so as to not inconvenience those who have the most. And I know we can do it because I've seen it in this community. It's amazing what we can do. We have a very generous, wonderful community, and I just think that we can be different, and I know we can. That's what I thank you.
You want to hold on, Supervisor Munzer? He has a question. Yes.
Oh, sure.
Okay, I need clarification here. Aren't you receiving the funds from the recycling program?
Yes.
Okay, and that is above and beyond what we're talking about here?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you are receiving a regular source of income from the county at this point?
Yes, well, from the ECS, although that has been drastically cut, and we're still trying to understand why and how that happened, but we do still get a little bit from that.
Okay, we'll need to look into that.
Yeah.
But, okay, I just want to make sure clarification, because I know I've gotten involved where you did not receive your checks, period,
Right.
a couple of months, and we got that worked out. Now,
For a few months, and then it went back. So.
Yeah, and the cutting of the amount, that's the first I've heard of that. Now, you're talking about, in addition to that fund, we were also funding a senior brown bag program for you?
It's $12,500.
Okay, and that would, I'm assuming, would be out of the other 40,000?
Melinda, can you address that, the dollar figures that we provide them?
So yes, in the last couple of years, I believe the first year we allocated $10,000, and then we've increased that to $12,500. Perhaps there was a little bit of misunderstanding on my part, is that this was specifically for senior programs. However, also in the senior-based programs, we looked at programs that used this funding for federal and state matching requirements. So that could have been a little misunderstanding on our part.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, supervisors, thanks for the opportunity and your attention. My name is Mark Paxton. I'm with Community Food Bank as well. A couple of points. First, thank you. I wholeheartedly support your commitment to senior services. But there are some other nonprofits here, including the food bank, that really provide the kind of bedrock essential services that would be left to the county to provide otherwise. Overwhelmingly, our clients, customers we call them, and we served 9,000 people last year. That's about 1 in 6 in San Benito County, are seniors and young people. And I've got to question a couple of things. First, the senior organizations, as well as the rest of the nonprofits, have been through the application process. And at this juncture, to sort of be reconsidering things is both a good thing, because it shows we're paying attention, and a bad thing. If we weren't here, a lot of these things would be left to you. And I'm going to, because you deal in a world of numbers, I'm going to throw some numbers at you. Our last independent audit shows our administrative overhead to be 2.5%. So 97.5% of our income goes right back out the door as food. Overwhelmingly, our customers are children and seniors. And I want you to consider something, and I'll just leave you with that. Think about your own household, and if there's a member in your household who each month had to make a decision between having enough groceries or taking the medication that they need. And you balance that, and so you begin to cut your pills in half or skip doses. You're gambling with your health and your life. 1/3 of the seniors in San Benito County make that decision every month, 34%. The food bank is a stopgap, a solution on the road to a healthier community. I think that's worth your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else? I'll close it. So we gave you direction to set aside the $80,000 for the senior
included
program.
those 4 programs.
And then the other, remaining, what is it?
40,000 was still part of the application process.
Okay, so Mike, here's my question to you. Are you asking the board to select a committee, or you want all those applications to come before the board?
No, we would like to take those 4 programs that we have continued to fund over the last 20 years, take those out of the application process and leave everybody else in.
That's a done deal. My question is for everyone else. What are your recommendations?
Our recommendation is that we also freeze the $40,000 in the pool. That would be our pool that the applicants could draw from.
Okay. Again, let me ask the question. What type of procedure do you want to be done to who gets that $40,000?
The same as it currently is. There's an application process and then a review board of those applicants.
So in that review board, there are some supervisors in that?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe currently on the board is you and also Supervisor Medina.
Medina?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I think Munzer.
Okay. Because of we don't know who it is. Who wants to volunteer to be on that committee?
I thought she just said you were on it.
No, I am. I mean, I'm going to be on it. So, Supervisor Munzer, you're okay with Supervisor Medina?
Absolutely. Let the newbie learn more.
All right, so it's going to be Supervisor Medina and myself will be part of that committee.
Okay. And we should be having a meeting within the next couple of weeks.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay.
Before we leave
Yes,
this item, Melinda, what your item number 3 on your little cheat sheet written report?
We felt it might be a little less confusing. We had a lot of confusion last year over whether people were up here talking about this current year's funding or what they put in an application for next year, is that we would provide, as part of their contract, we would provide that they, we would require that they come provide a written report as to how they use their allocation during the current year. We would give them until March 31st to prepare that report, and then we would assemble them and come back and put them on an agenda item for your review.
So it would come before this board, so
Right.
we get to see their pretty faces every year still.
Right, and they would still know that this item was before the board, and should there be any questions, they would also be here to answer your questions.
So, okay, I guess to his question, right, I was reading. So during the budget process, if any of the board members have questions, they'll go up there. Otherwise, it'll just be a consent item, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Are we ready to move back to number 1, or we'll go to 3?
3 should be quick. Number 1 may be a little longer. It's up to you, Mr. Chair. It's your call.
I just want one point of clarification before we move off of 2.
Okay.
By doing this change as far as programming the senior-based programs for, kind of automatic budget funding, what does that do to the 6.5% allocation? Is that something that still is a figure that we're, even though that's a change, or we'll eliminate that figure altogether, and are we to put that in our budget policies, or and that's a go away, and then we're going to do the non-senior based programs, kind of review what's available on a year-to-year basis?
We would we would recommend that we freeze the funding that we currently have, $120,000 total, 80,000 towards the senior-based programs and 40,000 to the non-senior based programs. And we would like to freeze that, and then again every year, if we can accommodate an increase based upon what we are allowing other departments, we would give them an increase that way also.
Okay, so the 6.5% is just kind of go away.
We would kind of go away with that.
All right, that's what I wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah.
And, I just want to state that as long as I've been on the board, we've always been very supportive of the food bank and their mission to make sure everybody is well nourished in our county. I believe we will always be in that position. I don't think this move is anything that should bother any other based organization. Thank you.
Well, at the same, when you look at the one side of the coin, if there are raises or extra money like any other department, you turn the coin to the other side, and there could be potential where you can draw back money too. So, Ray, the fact that there's $80,000 set aside for seniors doesn't mean it is a hardcore $80,000. It's depending on how our budget is, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, these numbers here, going from item number 1, which we're currently at 6.5% of whatever the sales tax is, and we disperse it accordingly, or item number 2, and that's kind of where we're kind of putting the cap at it and just kind of doing an escalator, looking at every year a budget. We do this with every single budget unit. We look at potential CPI escalators, or keeping the budget status quo, or having to reduce it. It just depends. So we're just looking at kind of having more of a cap figured at this point. That's kind of what we're doing with this. And yeah, that's it.
Okay.
If I may say so, $120,000 is about the highest point of allocation that we've seen in the last 10 years. So by freezing that at $120,000 to start this process, this is at the highest level that we've seen in the last 10 years.
All right, okay. We're all done with number 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 3 then?
Okay, this one should be relatively quick. In the 16-17 budget, we allocated roughly $35,000 for economic development. However, we only allocated $30,000 to various programs, economic development organizations through the 16-17 budget. So there's roughly $5,000 left in that budget. The San Benito County Chamber of Commerce has approached us and asked if they requested the additional $5,000. They have a map that they provide to tourists in their baskets or their handbags that they hand out, and they are at they actually don't have any more of these maps left. The map is an older version of San Benito County, and so it's not can't easily find some of the tourist attractions or how San Benito County is currently laid out. And so they're requesting $5,000 to update that map and, again, put them in their handbags that they hand out to the community. I believe Julie was going to be here, and she might be able to give you more details on that.
Good morning, Julie Vieira from the San Benito County Chamber of Commerce. Actually, this doesn't have anything to do with tourism, so I just want to make that correction. This is the old map that we had. It's from 2011. This is the only map that we had available in the county for anybody that needed a map of our service, of our area. We have city and staff, county, city, and staff members come in. Code enforcement came in the other day looking for a map, and we did not have one for them. We also have police, fire, the schools, Boy Scout troops, and visitors that come in to pick them up. So our new map will look like this. We're printing 10,000 of them. They will be available throughout the county, and it will last for approximately 3 years. It will also be online. The online version will be able to be updated when we have new subdivisions and new roads and things come in. So there's actually two components to it. There's the paper map, which I'm surprised so many people come in and ask for, but we do have that. And then the online map will be able to be updated for the next 3 years. So it's actually going to last for 3 years, the 10,000 copies. Anybody have any questions?
Supervisor Medina?
Nothing.
Supervisor Botello?
Yeah, I gotta admit, I'm not too excited about allocating the extra 5,000 because I really believe that maybe something like this should be at the beginning of the budget year as far as identifying different projects and allocating money towards those projects. We have a unallocated balance. I'm sure there's other groups that want that money, but I really think that we're going to have some real problems with our upcoming budget. And my position is that I think the 5,000 ought to be left for the as a fund forward balance going into the next year, and allocating it to economic development. Then, if we're able to allocate anything to economic development, the maps. It's great to have the chamber with an updated map, but I think advertising by the local businesses should be the source of revenue for the maps. And if the businesses that belong, in the chamber membership don't value it, I don't think it's left for the local government to fund this.
Actually, the chamber members did purchase $21,000 worth of advertising for this map. So the chamber members have supported this and have supported the directory that we just did with the tune of about $70,000. So I think the members of the chamber have definitely stepped forward.
Yeah,
So
okay, then that's good. I'm happy to hear that. And maybe the printing ought to be 7,500 rather than 10,000. And I just feel personally guarded with this $5,000, and it should be a fund balance going forward to next year. That's just where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Munzer?
I think I have to concur with Supervisor Patello. Let's just go ahead and leave the $5,000 in the fund and then utilize it within the budget process.
Okay. All right. We have direction. There's best case we can get is a 2-2 vote, so we're going to leave the $5,000 there to the next year.
Was there
Thank you.
public comment too?
Huh?
Public
Oh,
comment?
I'm sorry. Let me open up to the public. All right. Anyone from the public?
Bob Quaid.
Sorry about that, Bob.
That's okay. It sounds like you already made your decision.
Yeah, that's true.
You're going to keep the money there.
You might change it.
Well, if you're going to spend the money, I'm with the San Juan Committee, and so the San Juan Committee is a nonprofit, and we're promoting the economic vitality of San Juan while maintaining its charm. And we have got some money from Supervisor Botello to help support us, but we're promoting San Juan. So we're promoting tourism, and we're trying to get tourism to come into San Juan and then go to the rest of the county. So if you want to spend the $5,000, we'd like you to give the money to us rather than spend it on a map that sounds like the map's probably funded already. But I don't know how much detail you want about what the San Juan Committee is doing, but recently we had ABC come into San Juan, and they're doing a segment. They did a segment that's going to be airing April 30th, promoting San Juan and the surrounding community. They went out to some of the local farms in the area, and the Dianza Trail, and some of the hotels in San Juan. And so that's going to be aired April 30th, promoting San Juan, and that costs us $6,500. And we're in the process of updating we updated our internal website, and then we also now want to update the website that's used for the general public. We're also advertising in the wine, there's a wine and travel magazine that's in the Bay Area in Monterey County. We put it on there that costs us $1,000. So we're doing a lot to promote San Juan and San Benito County. So if you want to spend the money to promote tourism, please give the money to us. If you're going to save the money, we'll come back next year and ask for money if you have money in your budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, I do have a question. And it's not fair that I ask this question, but I gotta ask it because most likely you'll probably come before the board during the budget hearings in May or June. I'm trying to be as positive as I can. There was a gas station proposal in San Juan Bautista, and the citizens there kind of turned it down.
Well,
voted it down.
I'm not on the city council in San Juan. I'm on the San Juan committee. I used to be on the city
But
council.
what was the position of the chamber?
Well, we're not a chamber. We're not a chamber. We're the San Juan committee. We actually came into existence when the chamber went out of business in San Juan, and so we're a nonprofit. We're incorporated as a nonprofit, and we just became a membership organization. So we're trying to have the businesses and citizens can join the chamber or the San Juan committee. But our position was we supported the gas station.
Okay.
And actually, our one of our former members, Richard Ponce, was the president of the San Juan committee, and he actually had met with. I'm trying to remember the name of the guy that developed the gas station or is developing the gas station, but he had conversation with him, and the owner of the gas station had agreed to put a kiosk in the gas station for tourist information. So when people came in there, we would be able to put information in there as what's going on in San Juan and in the county. So we were in support of the gas station.
Okay, good to know that.
So yeah, hopefully that didn't sway you.
Yeah, but thank you.
Monty Richard from Hollister. I'm in my old saying mode today, so I'll give you another one. I hope you know what it means. There's an old saying that says people vote with their feet, and that's a saying we used a lot in Europe, whether or not people like to be in East Berlin when it was in East Berlin, or whether they like to be in West Berlin. Forget about what the vote was when they went and voted for who was going to be the president of East Berlin. The first chance they got is they walked across the wall and went into East Berlin, in West Berlin. So people vote with their feet, which means don't look at what they say, don't listen to what they say, look at what they do. So I look at what you do, and I don't think you have any interest in doing economic development in San Benito County because you don't invest enough money to make a difference. That's the truth. I mean, we knocked ourselves out to put 4 modes for economic development up on Route 101. And what's happened since then on those modes? As far as I know, nothing. I remember it was a big last-minute thing. People came running in, put those in there, when you were redoing your general plan. Do you remember that? We did all that. Nobody objected. They said, "Oh, let's put it in there," and we did that. We put in the one at Bettabell Y Road, the one at 129, the one at the Stockyard, and the one at the Red Barn. As far as I know, I don't know what's going on, but we haven't invested anything in getting that going. Into at least dragging the people who own that stuff in here and say, when are you going to do anything? We haven't invested anything in upping the sales taxes in the unincorporated area. So people go down and they eat in Trespinos, and they don't pay an extra 1%. But if they go and eat in Hollister, they have to pay it, and if they go eat in San Juan, they have to pay it. And I told you about the $20 million that Monterey gets. Well, we're not going to be Monterey, but we should at least be getting a couple of $1 million that Morgan Hill gets. But we're not getting that either. Hollister got $178,000 in TOT in 2015. So you're not investing enough money to make a difference, which means you don't really want it. Now, you can say you want it all you want, but if you're not going to invest the money, it's not going to happen. It's that simple. You can stand here and say how beautiful it is until you're blue in the face. People who want a Silicon Valley address don't care how beautiful it is. They want that address. People who want fast Wi-Fi and a better roads, people who want a bus to go down to the Pinnacles, they don't want to ride a free bus that you have to wait an hour for. They would pay to ride a bus. But we don't do that here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty.
Good morning. Very quickly, Christina Chavez Wyatt. On behalf of the EDC, I just want to give you a reminder of something that's coming up the pipe. Thankfully, you funded the development of a CEDS, a Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. The EDC board currently has the draft of this 9-chapter plan that includes a 5-year short-term and long-term action strategy that includes collaboration, set goals, and metrics for accountability of actually implementing these plans. So I want you to know that these are coming down the pipe as you're looking at your budgeting and allocations and collaboration in the future. We are going to be having what's called a CEDS committee that's going to be vetting the draft before it comes to the county and to the cities for their review and edit. And then after the approval, it will be sent to the Economic Development Administration, which hopefully will provide opportunities for funding for infrastructure, workforce development, et cetera, which will really bolster your have a chance to really bolster your budget. I also want to remind everyone, too, is we do have the San Benito County Business Councils holding their water forum on Friday morning from 7:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. with federal, state, and local agencies giving an update on our groundwater basins, supply projects, flooding, hopefully generating a discussion, too, about what's the status of San Justo and how we can get a reservoir back and open and accessible to the public. So I wanted to remind you all and extend an invitation. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Anyone else in the public? Okay, we'll close it. So no one has changed their position?
No, but I just want to comment that, I still don't see the real necessity of spending this money on paper maps. But what I would suggest to my colleagues, if you haven't utilized all your personal supervisorial discretion funds, is maybe take that money and contribute it to the map effort if that's something that is of importance. And I did contribute some my allocation to the San Juan committee for the project that Mr. Quaid mentioned earlier, and I hope that at a future date when that's complete and a presentation could be made, I want to bring that back to the board to show how those funds were utilized. Thank you.
Good idea, Supervisor Botello. Thank you. Okay, all right. No final comment? Okay, we'll move to item number 1.
Number 1. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, we've done today is invited Eric Chimas from PV2 to give a presentation. However, we want to make sure that the board is aware that the presentation directly relates to financing and sales tax. And I was just made aware from our controller auditor that since our last board meeting, we had an interpretation of in lieu of tax, but I guess the interpretation of the BOE regulations has changed, which Eric will probably chime in and explain that a little bit in the process of the sales tax and property tax. So in any case, I'd like to go ahead and leave this to Eric. Eric.
Thank you, Ray, and thank you, members of the board. My name is Eric Chernis. I'm with Consolidated Edison Development, and this is a presentation on the current status of the Panoche Valley Solar Project that's currently under construction in the eastern part of the county. So this is a fairly general update that relates back to kind of the revenues to the county and the current status of the project and how things are going. So please, this should be interactive, and I'm trying to provide as much information to yourselves in the community as we can on how the project is progressing out there. So goal is to talk about the project status, and also I have a slide on here referring to the development agreement and how we're living up to some of the commitments that were made quite a number of years back and how those are progressing. So first, just the general project status. So pre-construction activities did start in March of last year, 2016. Construction began in earnest in June of 2016. And construction activities are ongoing in both the southern laydown yard. We have 8 blocks on the site, so blocks 3 and 4 are in full-blown construction. The substation, the switch yard, which are tying into the PG&E infrastructure that's out there. And then we have a fairly significant relocation effort. We have certain endangered rats that are on the site that need to be relocated. I have it's both behind you and up here, depending on what's easiest for you guys to see. I have the blocks laying out here, and you can kind of see where our initial activities have occurred on the project site, primarily west of Little Panoche Road. And I do have some photos here, but I wanted to point out the laydown yard that we have here, where we currently have materials for the project site located. And these 2 little boxes right here, the substation and switch yard, are the very large facilities that are under active construction. You can see those. Here's the laydown yard, kind of showing modules that are on the site. You can see our construction pond, which is more like a lake, and our kind of construction trailers. We have quite a bit of medium voltage and high voltage cabling that we've been storing up there as we've been taking deliveries from the ports.
Hold on, Eric.
Yes, sir.
Supervisor Munzer.
So Eric, the nasty rumor floating around now is you're having to downsize the project again. Is that just a rumor?
So it is still a rumor. There have been discussions with the state of California, and the state has made requests of the project, but that's right now in the state's court to determine how they would like to handle that. We have all of our permits for the project site, and we are building 100% of the Panoche Valley Solar Project at this time.
So when you say the state of California, are you talking about the state of California, i.e.
The governor's office has...
the governor's office?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but right now we have at Con Ed and as the Panoche Valley Solar Project, we are building out the entire facility.
Okay. Thank you,
so,
Mr.
Now, you have a lot of equipment around there, right?
Yes, sir.
God, too bad Joe or Tom not here. So, are we getting money? I guess that's the question, right? Is the county getting money?
Yes. You're getting money in 2 different avenues off that, and I'll cover it in more detail, but you're getting both property tax through the pilot. Sorry, it's a pilot payment in lieu of tax. And then there's a sales tax we were part of the development agreement. We were required to book sales tax within San Benito County.
Within
And so-
San Benito County, at the 7.5% sales tax.
At the sales tax rate.
Yeah.
7.5%.
At the sales tax rate. I don't have it off the top of my head.
It wasn't 8.5, right, Marty?
We're in a great. Usually, developers ask for a special tax zone to reduce the tax. This is going to be one of the opposite. Okay, laydown yard. This is the project site looking west, so this is looking towards Hollister from I-5, looking across. You can see our laydown yard that we just.
Actually, Eric, can you hold on 1 minute? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Referring back to the sales tax, as of January 1st, the sales tax went down to 7.25%. Is Con Edison, or whatever the name of the group, willing to commit to that 7.5%?
What I'd like to do is talk, if you're okay with it, talk about sales tax and property tax. I have a slide in here with numbers. That way we can look at that together and we can have a discussion.
Good enough.
So we have our laydown yard. Here's your switching station and your substation over here. And you can see this is blocks 3 and 4 kind of coming across. It's hard. This is drone footage that was taken just a few weeks back, but it's covered in posts on the site where the solar modules will then sit on top of those posts. I then have a similar photo looking from the west to the east. So this is looking out towards Highway 5 direction, and you're seeing kind of the western edge of the project site. And you can see, once again, blocks 3 and 4 that are located there. And then off in the distance, the laydown yard and the sub and the switch. Just another angle at it. It's kind of hard to, the site as a whole is approximately 2,000 acres, so just trying to capture the size and the scope of the amount of activity that's occurred out there. Okay. So one of the issues that we did have on the project site once we did initiate construction, there was a bridge in Fresno County. That bridge was unable to handle the loads that we were bringing over it. So we had to work with Fresno County for a number of months and San Benito County to improve that bridge. And so we ended up doing a jumper bridge that sits on top of the existing infrastructure. So the bridge construction began on February 19th and was completed on February 26th. There was no resources impacting during the construction. We just had to build through one of the largest rainstorms in San Benito and Fresno County history. So, but that was done in a week, and we worked hand in hand with the services both in Fresno County and San Benito County, because at that time, other roads within inside the Panoche Valley region were being shut down. So it was actually a pretty significant effort to not only finish the work that was there, but also provide basic services to the community within inside the area. But that
Chairman, how long did it take you to build that bridge?
7 days.
Shoot, we got Hospital Road that you go work on next. Don't go there, Supervisor Botello.
I got just the guy for you. He'd love to do it. It just needed to rain hard enough for him to really want to get out there in it.
But Eric, that is a temporary bridge, right?
That is a temporary bridge. It spans over it. Yeah. There's a great discussion of why the bridge design became the bridge design that it is, but it is essentially one of those military bridges that you stick over the top. And so there's a couple-foot gap between the existing bridge and our metal bridge that you can drive a tank over. But we are driving materials over it. We've brought in the 2 very large pieces of equipment that needed to come to the site. The very large transformers have gone over the bridge. And we have not impacted Fresno County's dilapidated bridge in the slightest. We have bridged over it.
I'm sure the temporary bridge is just fine.
I'd be very surprised if Fresno asked for us to remove that temporary bridge, but they can do what they like to do with their decision-making authority. Okay, so let's talk about the development agreement. So far...
Well, wait, so,
yes, sir.
As far as you're concerned, you're happy with leaving that bridge there?
I will not make that commitment right now. There's a infrastructure agreement in place with Fresno County that at this time requires us to remove the bridge when we're completed with construction.
And that is what I've heard. So, okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's the current agreement that's in place. So before I get to this, there was two slowdowns that we had on the project site. One was access to the site, which was using the Fresno Bridge, which has been rectified. The other was due to the significant amount of rain that we had. We do have an endangered rat on the site, which we have a take permit from the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. That rat seems to do very well when there's rain and foliage for them to replicate, and so we were taking the rats at a more rapid rate than our take permits would allow. So we did have to reduce the amount of effort of physical ground disturbance that we had on the project site down, so that way we would not exceed our take limit, while the agencies were reviewing the change in the status of the rat. And so we anticipate this month receiving a take increase from the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, which would allow us to also increase the level of activity for our construction workers out on that site. So when those two issues have been solved, we can then move forward at a much more rapid pace. The first thing was the bridge, and now we've been able to bring significant amounts of materials to the site. We've been playing a little bit of catch-up. Once we can have the ground disturbance, you'll see the number of individuals out there increase. So, development agreement update. We've invested over $54 million in equipment in San Benito County. So this is just hard equipment in dollars. So this is racks, this is solar panels, this is medium voltage, high voltage cables.
This 54 million, that's just early startup equipment purchase, right?
Correct. This is physical equipment that's been delivered to the site as of 12/31/2016.
Okay, how many units of kilowatts is going to produce the equipment you have on hand right now?
By the end, I'm going to go off record, but on the end of July, we should have enough out there to produce about 126 megawatts.
Which is half.
And that's megawatts AC. So
is that half the project?
That's about half the project. That's correct.
So when do you plan to bring the rest of the equipment to do the other half of the project?
Some of that material is being constructed as we speak.
I'm sorry. I need you up there on the podium. And then you come up to the podium.
Yeah. You want to do it here? Yeah. Well, why don't I answer this? So when will the other half of the materials be delivered to the site?
Yeah.
We're working on that schedule right now. I don't have that schedule of when those materials will be there.
Would there be a downtime between completing this first half and the next half of equipment coming in?
Right now, that's not anticipated. I think that as we sit right now with the amount of materials we have out there, we have enough for our workers to work throughout the course of this year. We, of course, would not want to demobilize and then remobilize. So we assume that there will be we have purchased the materials. We're just looking at when they get delivered, because when they physically get delivered to the site is when there's the pilot payment then becomes due, and it's also when sales tax tends to be recorded for the state and for the county.
Now, I remember the unions coming up here, and we, the board, kind of said, we want to make sure. I apologize. We want to make sure that when we were talking about it from the beginning, the unions were up here, and so were some of the board members saying, we want to make sure that if we do a development agreement, that local jobs. Do you have a breakdown of the local job, people getting local jobs and local businesses getting businesses off of you?
I've actually made that request, Jaime, and I don't have that at this time. I have been able to receive confirmation that for every single job hire that's been out in the field, we have gone primarily to the local halls, and with those local halls, we have our contractors through the development agreement to us and us to our contractors have agreements for local hires within inside those halls. Some of the work that has been conducted, though, right, when you saw the visual representation, a lot of that work has happened inside that substation and switchyard. It's kind of hard to tell, but those are very complex construction projects, and a lot of that has been very specialty, high voltage engineer and construction folks. So not, I think the percentage of workers that will be for the entire site we've had a disproportionate share of non-San Benito County residents working with inside those sub and the switch, because they're not even coming from adjacent counties. They're coming from the state as a whole because of the specialty skills that are required. But but we are required to share that information with you, and we've made the request of our EPC contractor to go through and start updating us on the number of hours and where the hours are coming from.
But wasn't there like a side agreement that you would get together with the labor unions and say, hey guys, this is the skills that we need, the next 3 to 4 years? And didn't the unions meet that expectation to ramp up their personnel to make sure that those jobs are filled locally?
So I don't want to speak on behalf of the unions, but I do believe that has been the case. But the specialized labor that go inside the substation and switchyard, there's only a few of these built every year, and so it's the similar crew of individuals that tend to move from site to site. This is it's a 230 kilovolt system, so it's one of the highest voltage systems that we have in the state of California. So there's not a lot of individuals with those technical expertise that don't work for PG&E. Okay. So we've paid over $7.9 million in sales tax, so that's already been paid. And this spreadsheet now is a few days old, but those sales tax numbers continue to increase on a daily basis. We continue to take deliveries.
Referring to the sales tax, as of January 1st, the sales tax went down to 7.25 for the state of California. You're still committed to paying the 7.5?
I think we've committed to paying sales tax as whatever sales tax is. We don't have a pilot in place to pay a higher sales tax than what it is for the state of California. I'm looking at you, Ray, just to make sure that I'm not speaking out of tune. But
I guess when we enter into contract, the assumption was a 7.5, and we never foresaw a governor dropping. You believe that? Dropping a sales tax? Well, and it happened. And so just want to make sure.
Actually, our current governor, I agree. But we can have a different conversation if you'd like. But right now, my understanding of how the sales tax is being paid is it's being paid at a rate of whatever the effective sales tax was. So the $7.9 million would have been at the higher rate because that would have been reflected from 2016 sales tax. So,
Got it.
But I guess the highlight that I'd like the board to take away is about half the material will be at the site by the middle of this year. Okay, so just from a rule of thumb perspective, and we're working closely with both the CAO's office and the tax assessor.
Got it. All right, Supervisor Botello.
Yeah, well, I'm not blaming you for what happened with the sales tax. A deal is a deal.
I appreciate that.
But and everything that happens in Sacramento is just beats up on the local counties and cities. And what I'm more interested in is the exemption of the $54 million in equipment that's sitting there. It should be unsecured property taxes, way I see it, and then the cost, of course, is passed on to the consumer, but the incentive is, of course, to have non-renewable energy companies come into California so we could meet our sustainable needs. But it's no fault to Edison or anyone associated, of course, but I pay unsecured property taxes for my equipment and everything from the computer on my desk to sprinkler pipe and things, and that's where my understanding is the $54 million is exempt from that.
It is exempt from that. The state of California has exempted renewable generating facilities from paying property tax. In exchange for that, what we've worked out with the County of San Benito through the development agreement is the pilot. This is the payment in lieu of tax. And so there is a percentage of the property tax that would have gone to the county's general fund, which is really where, when we were having the discussion years ago, where the concern was okay, right. we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. There's money that's there that we are utilizing the infrastructure within inside the county. We are utilizing the county roads. We are utilizing both for bringing equipment to the site, but we also have individuals and workers that are coming to the site, and we're utilizing those facilities. So we've come up with the payment in lieu of tax. which is being paid to the county on an annualized basis. So we're actually going through that audit right now with the county to look at that $54 million and determine what the payment in lieu of property tax number would be. So if you go to just the last bullet point that I have here, in accordance with the development
Actually,
agreement.
Eric, you want to hold on?
Yes, sir.
Medina?
Yeah, I just have one quick question here, and I apologize. I'm new to the board. I've been here since January, but we're talking about 6.5%, 7.5%, $54 million in unsecured assets. My question here is, I come from the private sector, of course, and when we look at this, I look at my revenues weekly, monthly, daily, sometimes hourly to see it change. Now, my question here is there some type of a format that I can see that would show the amount of revenue we received by month or by year?
Who are you asking the question to?
Yeah,
whoever wants to answer. I'm easy.
Well, I know this item, your board gave direction to staff to look into this item. So where are we at with the project, hence why Eric is here today, and what's been paid. I do know that our Tom Slavich, our assessor, has actually gone through the process and has communicated with you and actually has met with you since. And there was a development agreement that was created. We're not property tax with solar projects, we're exempt, so we don't receive anything. So even if you were looking at something, we would not get anything from that.
My question here is, I have a lot of constituents out there asking, well, the solar farm, what type of revenue are we receiving? So is there something are we saying we haven't received anything?
Well, that's what
there has been money that's been there.
So how much money has been put in our general fund?
So no, we have. So I was just told from I wish Joe Paul was here. We're actually going to hire a company to actually HDL to address the taxes and what the allocation is, and then to make sure that we've received those taxes. So this is just the beginning. Excuse me. This is just kind of the beginning process of it all. For this year with regards to 2016 and 2017. So we're just starting this process. I mean, they've just brought in all this equipment in really since...
In the last 6 months, 7 months. Right.
Yeah. So I can tell you our office is working on it, Tom's working on it, and the auditor. What I can do is come back to you at our next board meeting or another board meeting and give you more specifics with regards to what's been accounted for. I can't tell you that right now. I mean, what's hit the general fund? I don't know if anything's hit the general fund, to be quite honest with you.
I can tell you that the pilot has not, because we're going through the assessment right now to determine what that payment needs to be for materials that were delivered to the site by the end of last year. Sales tax has been paid to the state, and I appreciate the county working with HDL to make sure that those funds actually get extracted from the state and find their way down to the county general fund, because other counties that we've worked with have had issues with that, even if it's booked in the right way.
So with all due respect, the only benefit we've received so far that I see is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 additional fire people are out there?
Fire, sheriff, and then general facilities, and
so you're paying for
local
you're
hires.
paying for an extra sheriff out there also?
We do have the sheriff's department out there, yes.
So you're paying for one full-time person? Is that how that works, or?
I think we have a commitment with the sheriff's department, and we've been paying the sheriff's department to be out there. I'm not sure if they've allocated that to one FTE or whether they're sharing it across.
Yeah, I just had a meeting with the sheriff. I invited the sheriff here if there were any questions regarding the sheriff's office. But I can tell you that it was there was an agreement. I believe that agreement's ended or close to ending. And that's another thing that we need to work with you on, is to extend those agreements with both fire and the sheriff however long the project continues on.
The fire agreement was recently extended. The sheriff's agreement will do the same.
Yeah.
The sheriff's agreement, both those agreements are tied to the CEQA document, which was the approval by the county linked with our conditional use permit, that we would have those services available during the construction timeframe of the project.
I just think we need to get real hot and heavy on the monies we're receiving. I mean, I can actually see the sheriff and the chief out there, and I feel good because I know there's people allocated towards that. But then I don't see anything or hear anything about revenue hitting our general fund, and that's not what we intended for this agreement to bring.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Medina. Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think to speak in Eric's defense, as far as the sales tax, I wish we got that whole $7 million that he's paid, but I believe we only get about % of it. And the 0.25% or whatever it was that went down, that was paying for a specific program of the state that has gone away. So the fact that the overall sales tax went down does not affect the amount that we get, or what it would have gotten if the higher amount was still being paid.
Thank you, Supervisor Munzer.
And not trying to put words in our sheriff's mouth, but PV2 is paying for a South County deputy. And I believe, and he's nodding his head, it's basically a South County deputy. He patrols the South County, which we were without for several years. So that is, for me, that's huge. Also, I think I was one requesting this be agendized. And because we do need to have these discussions, we do need to know where we are, and we can't have these discussions without Eric and his people here to find out where we are with all the development agreements. So I appreciate his willingness to come and have
I think it'll be wise for us to come back. When we were just starting the process, we were about a month into it of reviewing and auditing. Right, the development agreement, has a stated agenda of what it's trying to accomplish. We're trying to actually go through the process now of putting of actually tabulating how we look at those numbers, so we can provide the answers that Supervisor Medina is looking for of where the dollars are flowing, and there will be a payment in lieu of property tax payment that's made this year, probably within the next short period of time once we can tell you guys exactly what that number is. I want to hit one other topic here just because I think there are some actionable items that's worth the board knowing about. There on this last bullet, there's about $140,000, which we see this going to the county this year. About $65,000 of that was through the development agreement and through the abandonment of the Los Aquilas Creek Road. There was some money that was set aside, $50,000, and then increased by another $15,000 for use by the county and for the Board of Supervisors to use for a county betterment project. That could have been solar. That could have been. It was fairly loose on how the board would choose to allocate that. But that money is there, and it's available to the board when you guys decide how you would like to spend it. So that's part one. The other part is approximately $75,000 for the pilot. That's looking at the $54 million of equipment that's there and doing very rough math and calculating what that would be in an initial payment to the county. We are reviewing that right now with the tax assessor to determine what that number needs to be and coming to an agreement on that. But that's would be probably on the low end of the number, so you can have something in the back of your head to understand what's actionable from the county's point of view. And that would conclude what I have prepared to share, but I'm here to, of course, answer questions as necessary by the
Eric,
board.
I just for my own. So you're telling me that you have all the state and federal permits to build the 240 project,
Correct.
right? You do have them as today.
Correct.
Okay. And you also, and I just want to, I actually took some notes here. I just want to share with you that. I think it was Supervisor Barrios and myself that went to Sacramento and lobby for the project. We, traveled, we walked to all the departments and talked to everyone, and I just want to make sure that we are partners in this project. And the rumors that I've been hearing, and you guys are cutting it in half. It's not happening. I want to make sure. I want to hear that from you today.
The rumor of cutting it in half that we have been asked to reduce our project in size is true. We have not agreed to reduce the project in size in any way. We maintain that we have all of our permits and we continue to move forward with construction. I'm answering your question the best way that I can answer that right now.
So that could change tomorrow, what you're saying.
I'm saying that we need to maintain an open dialogue through this process, right? That there are certain barriers associated to modifying the project in any way, and those barriers are things that are not necessarily borne by the project, but borne by other parties that have concerns with the environmental impacts associated with the project.
In the beginning of the project, too, the discussion of benefiting the local economy, and we know, you and I know, simple mathematics, simple physics. The majority of the people go to the Fresno County. They're not going to drive 40, 50 miles up north to have lunch. So has there been secondary benefits to our local economy because of the construction of that project?
I know that there have been, because I go to the Little Pinoche Inn all the time, which is packed full of people. But I know what you're getting at, which is additional other benefits of working with other third-party groups that provide services, whether it be fuel, whether it's, there are contractors out there that can do fencing and other activities that are on the site. I don't have a specific update on that right now, Supervisor De La Cruz, but I do invite the opportunity to come back to the board and update you on let's call it the additional economic development above and beyond the pilot and the sales tax commitments that are being made. There are certain restrictions that we have because our contracts also require us to utilize the local unions, and we can make requirements inside of our contract on what the local unions can do, but at the end of the day, I can't force the specific hiring with inside the halls, but we have certain requests that have been placed with those union halls.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Munzer?
Yeah, I guess my only comment, and Eric indicated he's the willingness to do it. We're limited by the way the agenda was written up to discuss the revenues. I would like to have a fuller discussion on the project. Maybe when you've heard some of our concerns, maybe when you have those answers, maybe we can re-agendize this and have you back again. I would very much appreciate that.
Okay, we'll do that. All right, thank you. Any other questions, Supervisor Patello? Supervisor Medina? Okay, let me open up to the public.
Always available. No extra charge. Thank you, Eric. First of all, Marty Richmond, I'd like to thank PV2 for paying their taxes. So they sent almost $8 million to the state. The fact the state is going to play around with it as long as they want until they send us our share, and maybe forget to send us our share. That's a whole different deal. As far as the revenue is concerned, if the project is cut in half, the revenue will go down. So I take it from the implications here, since we're talking about revenue, that what's happened is, after losing in court time after time after time, the rat people went over and got the governor to ask them to cut the project in half. Well, guess what? If you guys take that sitting down, you're a bunch of idiots, because that doesn't affect just this project, that affects every project we get in this county. The purpose is to make sure that no one can build a project in this county. Do not kid yourself. There is nothing to do with Pinocha Valley. The environmentalists have made it clear they want all the solar projects out of this county, and they want them over at the west area where it's all poisoned with selenium. And if you move the earth there, you wind up with 4 million lawsuits. We all know that. They don't give a damn. They care more about the rats than they care about the people. The people can starve. They can lay in the street and die. And the environmentalists would step over them because they don't want to get their feet dirty. Okay? Now, there's such a thing as being an environmentalist, and there's such a thing as being an idiotic radical. And that's what these people have wound up to be. It's unfortunate. They're idiotic radicals. Someone's finally got to call them what they are. At some point in time, you've had your day in court. You've had your day in court. and you've had your day in court, and you've tried to run them into the ground by suing them out of business, and you lose and you lose and you lose, so you run over to the governor and say, we don't care if you want solar energy, we want this project cut in half, even though the project has spent a fortune. I don't think that's the way this state should do business. And I think the legislature and the governor should be ashamed of themselves, okay? And the governor, who's about to put 15 cents a gallon on a gallon of gasoline, is not doing anybody a favor by cutting solar panels in half, okay? Because I'm for energy independence, and I want more energy independence more than I care about the sales tax. And I don't want to have to go to Saudi Arabia or have my granddaughter who's in the Army killed in the Middle East to get a barrel of oil because some idiot environmentalist cares more about a kangaroo rat than a person. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty. Anyone else from the public? Okay, I'll close it. All right, so this is more informational. Oh,
yeah.
Elizabeth,
If it is informational, and
thank you.
You know, I'm happy to see that Mr. Richmond is behind the PV2 project, even timidly, as he was. But you know, I agree. I think PV2 already cut their project in half.
Oh yeah.
From the beginning.
Yeah.
And I certainly hope that the whole project is built out, and ultimately San Bernardino County does benefit from this project in lieu taxes and so forth. But we're in need this revenue. I see the chief and the sheriff walk out. In our next budget years, we do have a real problem in the near future. We got to fund the jail staffing with the new jail being built, and we'll have to fund more fire. And so we need these taxes and revenue coming in, and we got to make sure we get it. And so this is something that we got to keep in mind and start planning now. So when we have the new jail built, we need to do something different with fire. We're prepared. Yeah. But so this project needs to be built out all the way, and then some. In fact, if I was in the meeting with the governor, I would say I want more land, because I agreed with everything that Mr. Richmond stated up here. Don't agree all the time with what he says, but that particular time he was very good and a little bit animated, but that it needed to be said. This governor is just on the verge of senile. I'm happy his time is almost up. But, the state has made a commitment to sustainable energy and renewable resources, and this is a great project for us. So that's my rant. Not as good as Marty, so.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Mark Padilla? No, sir. Jerry? No. Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're going to go to closed session.
Okay, as a housekeeping matter before we go into closed session, I would like to poll the board as to their availability for special meeting to consider the draft marijuana cultivation ordinance on May 9th at 6 p.m. If I could find out the availability of the board.
May 9th?
May 9th.
May 9th? May 9th. Night looks... Oh, it's good.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, it's good. We're good. Oh, good. Jerry? So Tuesday. Anthony? Yeah. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Okay, so closed session, conference with labor negotiators, agency designated representatives, Allison Hayek, Ray Espinoza, Joe Paul Gonzalez, Melinda Casillas, Georgia Cochran, Steve Coffey. The employee organizations are Institutions Association, Law Enforcement Management Employees Group, SCIU Local 521, SCIU Local 2015, Deputy Sheriff's Association, confidential management, appointed department heads, and unrepresented employees.
Okay, perfect. We'll go to closed session.